Good morning. How are you all today? Thank you for visiting with us. Welcome to Bible class with Andre and Betty. Today we're continuing our studies from the book of 1 Samuel. And today we are in chapter 17. We're looking at the Philistines fighting against King Saul and the nation Israel. And we will see how David's anointing from the Lord that he received in chapter 16 is operating in this chapter. We're only going to do verses 1 to verse 30 because it has 50 or more verses, and we'll do part 1 today and part 2 the next time. So we're in 1 Samuel chapter 17, and we're looking at the Philistines fighting against Saul and the nation Israel. Verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle and were gathered together at Shuko, which belonged to Judah. This where they gathered together was at Judah, and pitched or set up camp between Shuko and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. Verse 2. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched or set up camp by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array or in position against the Philistines. So they're coming together against each other at war. But the Philistines initiated this war. Verse 3. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them, that is, the valley of Elah was between them. Verse 4. And there went out a champion or a giant out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath. Gath is territory belonging to the Philistines, which is in Canaan land. So his name was Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He was over 9 feet tall. He was a giant. Verse 5. And he had an helmet of brass. He's coming to fight against one man. He only don't want to fight against the whole nation. He wants to fight against one man. And he's going to have 6 pieces of protective armor on, and he's going to still get killed by David, because David's faith was in the Lord, not in his weapons of war. And so he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, or a flexible metal garment of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, which was artistically done, his spear. And his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him, so really it's 7 protective gears. verse 8. And he stood, this is Goliath, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are you come out to set your battle in position? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. Verse 9, if he be able to fight me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. So this Philistine giant said in verse 10, and the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. He's opposing the men of Israel. 11. When Saul and all Israel heard those words from the Philistine, they were dismayed or downhearted and greatly afraid. Verse 12. Now David, the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had, let me read it again. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons, and we talked about the 8 sons last time. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. That is, Jesse was an old man. Verse 13. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. Verse 14. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul, so they went in the army of Israel. 15. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. So he had come to Saul when the evil spirit was upon Saul, but now he's just going back, and Saul wanted him to stay with him, but now at this point he went back home. He's going to come back, but at this point David went to feed his father's sheep. Verse 16. So David is not present here, but he will be later. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. So 40 days of the number 40 represents a time of testing. And so every day and every night for 40 days, he presented himself to Israel. Verse 17. And Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. So now David is being sent by Jesse to his brothers. Verse 18, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, talking about King Saul, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge, So come back and tell me how they're doing. 19, now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines, and this refers to verse 2. 20. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench of the camp as the host of the army was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. Verse 21. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, the gift that he was bringing to King Saul and his brothers, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. Now, what David heard him speak is the words the Philistine talked about, verse 8, 9, and 10 of this same chapter. Verse 24. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. So Saul, along with his army, were afraid of this giant, of the Philistines. Verse 25. And the men of Israel said, have you seen, they're talking to David now, have you seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy or oppose Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free from Israel. So Saul had put some of the people in bondage. Verse 26, and David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the shame or the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And that's what they are telling David, the men of Israel are telling David in verses 24 and 25. Okay, and verse 28, and Eliab, the eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, when David spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was stirred or kindled against David. And he said, why camest thou down hither? What did you come here for? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? So he's scolding David. And then he says, I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. You're here and you shouldn't be here, and you need to go home. Verse 29, and David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? So David is used to them fussing at him and talking about him and being mean to him. So David said, what have I done now? Why are you talking to me this way? Verse 30, and he turned from him toward another brother and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. So next time we'll see David's fight against Goliath. And we see that the Philistines is one of many enemies to the nation Israel. So, thank you all for listening again. You all have a great day and a great week. Bye.